Hey everyone, this is Zach at FF Triple Batman. This is Fantasy and Frames, and this is Beat the Waiver Wire for Week 7. So if you guys have not tuned in before, make sure you subscribe to our channel. A lot of great content coming out there, and make sure you like this video. It's a great way to support our team. So I am here to talk to you about players that are rostered in less than 50% of ESPN leagues, so you can pick them up now for free and beat that waiver wire, meaning you don't have to compete with the rest of your league, whether it's a priority pickup or whether you got to put out some fab to pick up these players because they ended up going off in week 6, or maybe a player ahead of them got injured and now they are more valuable. We've had a lot of success so far this season. Let's keep it going now that we're into bye weeks. All right, you guys are going to recognize a lot of players that I've already talked about if you've been watching. If not, that's why I'm covering them again, because they're still there. The first one is quarterback Daniel Jones, 25% rostered. Not going to lie, the QBs are really slim. I recommended Geno Smith last week, which ended up being great because he had a tough defensive matchup and he looked great. And now he's well over 50% rostered. So hopefully you followed my advice last week and you stashed Geno Smith. But if you didn't, Daniel Jones is probably your best bet. His upcoming schedule after this week, he has at Jacksonville week 7 and at Seattle week 8. So solid matchups, and we've seen him running a lot more. You cannot expect him to score 2 rushing touchdowns every week, but the fact that he is running so much, that does add fantasy value. So go ahead and stash Daniel Jones. At running back, I'm going to keep talking about this player until we get him over that 50% threshold. He's at 25.7% rostered. Rachaad White. So these stats are coming from Dwayne McFarland. Great follow on Twitter if you don't follow him already. But Rachaad White has now reached a 40% snap share for the second consecutive game, which is why I was talking about him a few weeks ago. And last week he had a 41% route participation, 23% rushing attempts, 71% short yardage, and 21% were long down and distance. And then he was not on the field for the 2-minute offense. Leonard Fournette dominated the passing down work, and he had 68% of rushing attempts. So why am I talking about Rachaad White? Because he's still getting on the field 40% of the time. The points are going to come. He looked good 2 weeks ago when he was getting the 5 targets for 5 catches. He just didn't see the work last week. So stash Rachaad White. He is a potential league winner if Fournette gets hurt. And Fournette has not been a model for avoiding injuries. So we don't wish injuries upon anybody, but that is why we're playing fantasy football, because injuries do happen and you need to get ahead of them if you can. So stash Rachaad White. Moving over to wide receiver, another repeat from last week, Devin Duvernay. He's 31.4% rostered. He is the lead wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens because Rashad Bateman is out again for week 6 after he already missed week 5. Still, all we know is a mid-foot injury. I really think it potentially could be a Liz Frank injury. I am not an injury expert in any way, but the team has been very quiet about Bateman's injury or his progression through his injury status. So you need to pick up Duvernay. He's still out there in almost 70% of leagues on ESPN. Now, I understand Mark Andrews is obviously the lead target getter, but Duvernay is still second on the team in targets. He had 7 last week when Bateman wasn't playing, only behind Andrews' 10. And he's on the field almost all game. He has a snap rate of 94.1% for the season. So even when Bateman was on the field, Duvernay was on the field almost the entire game. So go ahead. You can probably even start Duvernay if you need to, because he has a solid matchup against the Giants this week as well. But regardless, you need to stash him. Also, one last stat on Duvernay per PFF. Duvernay has 5 receptions of 20-plus yards downfield this season. Only Tyreek Hill and Chris Olave have more. So Duvernay can also make those big plays. Over to tight end. Tight end is bleak per usual. So we're just taking some shots on the dark. That's why you're beating the waiver wire. You can always drop these guys on Tuesday or Wednesday. So Robert Tonyan is 27.1% rostered. He's 10th in tight end red zone targets with 5. So you like to see that work near the red zone. And then he did play fewer snaps than Mercedes Lewis last week in London. You don't like to see that. But let's see what happens in week 6. So you pick Tonyan up, you stash him. Let's see if he bounces back. He had 7 targets in week 3. You love to see that. And he scored a touchdown in week 4. So he had a down week 5. Let's see what happens in week 6. You can always drop him. If not, maybe end up getting a sneaky tight end for free going into week 7. And our bonus. So I'm recording this on Friday night. You're probably watching this on Saturday or Sunday. But we found out that Cam Akers is out for week 6. We don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully everything's okay. Daryl Henderson is now the presumptive starter for the Los Angeles Rams. He is 49.8% rostered, so he comes just under that 50% threshold. But even if he went over, I would still talk about him. You need to go double check your waiver wire. Make sure Henderson isn't there. If he is, pick him up immediately. Now, he does have a bye in week 7, but you might be able to start him in your flex in week 6. But regardless, we don't know what's going on with Cam Akers, so maybe Akers is back for week 7 or week 8 after the bye, and Henderson maybe goes to your bench, or maybe you drop him, or maybe not. So pick Henderson up. Let's see what happens. That's why we're beating the waiver wire. Now, the Rams still have a bad offensive line, but you have to pick up any running back that has a chance to start. That is the goal of Beat the Waiver Wire. So double check your waivers, pick up Henderson immediately. Thank you all for tuning in for another Beat the Waiver Wire. I hope it's going well for you all. Like I said, please subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of great content coming out. We don't just talk about Redraft. We have Dynasty, we have DFS, and we have IDP covered as well. So a lot of great talented people on this team putting out content. So make sure you go ahead and check out the website, fantasyandframes.com, for all of the articles coming out weekly. Make sure you follow at Fantasy and Frames on Twitter, and you can go ahead and give me a follow as well at FF Batman if you would like to see all of the content that I'm putting out as well. So thank you all. Have a great one.